This episode of McCalls Quilting Quilt-Along is brought to you by FOF, the sewing machine for quilters, and by Moda, producer of quilting fabric and home of the fabric precuts.
Welcome back to McCall's Quilting Parisian Grace Quilt-Along. I'm Laura Roberts, and I'm going to be your hostess through this lovely adventure of ours down the streets of Paris. And today I'm going to show you how to cut and how to make templates so that you can have all your pieces, patches, and little leaves and flowers ready to go for next time when we get sewing. Okay, so the first thing you need to know is that when you look at your pattern, the pattern pieces are actually arranged by size. So you want to make sure you're cutting in the order they're listed, which means that you're going to be cutting the big things first. So you're going to be cutting strips before you cut squares. And when you get down to where you're way down at the bottom there, you're going to see that you're going to be cutting a square for bias binding. So all I want you to do is cut that square and set it aside, because down when we're almost done, I'll show you how to make the bias from that square. So just put that aside. So again, you're going to be cutting in the order they're listed, because that way you'll have the most success. So one thing I'm going to show you that isn't in the pattern, but is something in this quilt and also in my blocks, is a way that you can sort of fussy cut a border strip so that when it goes around your block, it's going to make this really pretty framing. So these border strips are cut from this fabric. And here's how it works. Okay. You need 2 strips that are 15.5 inches long and 2 strips that are 12.5 inches long. So what we want to do is arrange it so that the ruler will cut with this centered over here like that, so that you have it symmetrical. So here's how you do that. If you're going to cut a 12.5 inch strip, or we should probably start with a 15.5 just because it's longer. If you want to cut a 15.5 inch strip and you want to center it, here's how you do it. You take that length, the 15.5 inches, and you divide it in 2. That's how you know where the center is. So 15.5 divided by 2 is 7 3/4. Okay, so here's my ruler. And I'm looking, here's my 7. And 7 3/4. And it's really easy to see the center here of this pattern because it's symmetrical. Yeah, pretty symmetrical. It's darn close. And here's your center, okay? So what I'm going to do is line up my ruler so the 7 3/4 line is on that center part, like that. And I can check it by looking on the sides, okay, to make sure that my lines, any lines I have, are running parallel to these lines, which they are. Okay, so 7 3/4 is here. I need to scooch that over. Did you see that? I want to get that centered. Okay, but I only need a strip that's 2.5 inches wide. So I'm just going to bring this down so I don't waste a lot of fabric, like that, because I'm going to be cutting along here. Okay. 7 3/4, it's still in the center, right? Because there's my design right there. Okay, and I need 15.5 inches for my strip. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to start by cutting this right at the end of the ruler like that. And then, without moving it, I'm going to turn that just slightly without moving that fabric. I'm holding it tight, and I'm going to run my rotary cutter right down there like that. Okay, now, oops, I have a thread stuck. If you ever have a thread, where your rotary cutter is going along and it leaves a thread and leaves a thread and leaves a thread, it means you have a notch in your rotary cutter blade and you need to put a new one in. Or you could try one of the blade sharpeners that's on the market and see if it works for you. Okay. 15.5 inches is the length of my strip. Now, did you see what I did? I turned it around. I cut like that the first time. There's my cut. And then I turned it around like that. So my cut edges are here and here, right? Oh no, I cut here and here. Those are my cut edges. These are the edges I need to cut. Okay, so what I'm going to do, here's the 15.5 inch line on my ruler. I'm going to bring that right down here, like that, so it's right on the edge of that strip. You see that? And then this line needs to be, this edge needs to be on that 2.5 inch line. Okay, there we go, 2.5, 2.5, there we go, 2.5 inches. Okay, 2.5 inches, 15.5 inches, there we go. All right, so I'm gonna cut like I did before. I'm gonna cut that end off, like that. And then holding this. Now, if you're at home, you may be able to just walk around your table. I'm just gonna turn it like that, making sure this 2.5 inch line is still in place. There we go. Okay. One of the good things to learn is to double check. You know that old saying about measure twice, cut once is absolutely true. 2.5, 2.5. There we go. Okay. Holding that like that, I'm just going to cut along. And since I appear to have a little notch in my blade, I'll do it twice. That's what happens when you run over a pin. If you've ever run over a pin, it's so sad, because then you ruin your blade. Okay, there we go. And if you can see, it's symmetrical. It's cut so you've got this center, but more importantly, it's cut so this is the same distance from the ends. And then when you put it around your block, you're going to have this wonderful framing up that is just, it's so pretty, and it's, you know, again, it's one of those things that makes you look brilliant. You know, like, look what I can do. Okay, so I'm just going to move these out of the way, and I'm going to show you how to cut templates, how to prepare your templates. Okay, when you get your pattern, you're going to have templates right there on that last page. And before you cut your templates, there's something really important you need to do. Right here, you have a square, an accuracy guide, a rectangle here. And it tells you print at 100%, no scaling. Well, what does that mean? It means that on your printer, or you know, in your computer where you can control the printer, if you have scaling on, in other words, where it's going to scale it to 80% or 12% or whatever, you're not going to have the right size. If you don't have the right size here, these templates aren't going to be the right size. So when you print it out, grab a ruler and check it. As you can see, this should be 2 inches by 1 inch. Okay, so I'm going to put my ruler on here, and I'm just going to take a good look. Okay, if I put my ruler on those lines, yay, it's 2 inches by 1 inch. If it was 1 1/4 by 2 1/4, I would need to bring it down. So let's say it looks like it's printing at 100% and I want it to be smaller, I'll bring it to maybe 80% and then check again. And you just kind of go up and down on the percentages on your printer, if you need to get that exactly 1 inch by 2 inch, because that way you know your templates are going to be the right size. Okay. So, templates. There are different ways to make templates, and you make templates based on what kind of applique you're going to be doing. If you're going to be doing hand applique, you do them one way. If you're going to be doing fusible web applique, you're going to be doing it in a different way. Okay, so here are the different ways to prepare. Okay, there are different products out there. This is a kind of template plastic that is heat resistant, which means you can iron on it. And that's the best one, because if you have a template plastic that's not heat resistant and you go ahead and iron those edges over, you know what's going to happen? Your template's going to get all crinkled up and your fabric will be all icky and you'll have to do it again. So it doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be this color. There's also clear heat resistant template plastic, but you want to make sure heat resistant is on there, okay? Freezer paper. Now, there are a couple ways. You can go to the grocery store and buy the huge roll of freezer paper, and you can even buy that online. But this is a lovely thing. This is Kim Deal's new freezer paper. She's a wonderful designer, and she has come out with her own freezer paper that really, it's easier to work with because it doesn't have the curl, for one thing, and it's just, it's got a, I don't know how to describe it. It works better in terms of it holds it in place without being flimsy. And freezer paper, you'll notice when you look at this, I hope you can see this. One side is shiny and one side is like paper, okay? So when you're tracing your templates, you're gonna be tracing them on the paper side, okay? And I'll show you that in a minute. And if you're interested in this, you can go to McCallsQuilting.com/quiltalong, And you'll have links to where you can get things like this, and also if you wanted to order the kit if you don't have yours yet. Just didn't want to forget that. Okay, then there's this stuff. This is made by June Taylor. And believe it or not, it's a printable fusible web, which means you can actually run this through your printer. Woohoo! You want to make sure, however, it's printing on the paper side. There's a paper side, and then there's this rough side. You can't mix them up. So you may want to do a little practicing with a plain piece of paper first. Make sure you know how it's printing. And then, here's another thing. If you're using fusible web, you have to flop the template. And what that means is, the way fusible web works, you are going to make it in reverse. You're going to end up the way that it's going to go like that. So on your printer or in your computer where it controls your printer, you'll see something that's a mirror image option. And depending on which program you have, which printer, sometimes it looks like lines going out in this, opposite directions, but they're a mirror image. So you just look for mirror image or reverse. You can also use a printer at, like Kinko's or, a big place like that. They have one that will do reverse also. So what that lets you do, you can print these guys out. And what I have done is you cut those out and then photocopy and photocopy. So if you do that, photocopy one, cut it out, put it on a plain piece of paper. So I have this one I photocopied onto regular paper, just plain old printer paper. And it comes like that. Cut that out. And then the next time you move it here, and you do it again, and you do it again. So you have on a piece of paper, you can have your 3 groupings of templates, and that way you use your paper more efficiently. Again, after you do that, after you print onto regular paper or photocopy, measure again. Okay, it's really important that this be right, because otherwise you're going to have wonky leaves, and your tulips could be huge, which would not be what you want. Okay, so that stuff's kind of fun, the printable fusible web, because then you don't have to trace so much. And then plain old ordinary fusible web. There are all different brands out there. I'm not even sure which one this is. Might be Wonder Under. Okay, again, a rough side and a paper side. There are fusible webs out there that are kind of have the webbing on 2 sides, where you have this, it's a different sort of thing. It's not backed by paper. The kind I'm going to be showing you how to use is paper backed. So if you're out there getting fusible web, please get a paper backed version. Okay, so how do we make all this work into templates? How does this all become something you can use? Okay, well, here's how it works. If you want to use a template plastic that is going to be like this, you can see that it's really darn hard to see through. I can't just trace that, okay? So what I'm going to do is take scissors, and I'm going to cut out a template like this. And you want to cut out right on that line. Okay, like that. Okay, there we go. So remember, right on the line, not outside the line and not inside the line, right on the line. And you probably know that you need a pair of scissors for cutting things like template plastic and paper. And that should be not used on fabric. You want your fabric scissors to be separate. Your fabric scissors are sacred. No one in your family gets to use them but you, okay? Put a label on them. Chain them up. Put a lock on them. Don't let your kids take your fabric scissors and cut other things with them, because when you come back to cut fabric, you're going to go to cut it, and it's going to go, and it's going to tear, and you're going to be really sad, and you're going to be really upset, and then you'll have to take your scissors to the store to get them sharpened. So these are my paper scissors, but your fabric scissors, don't let anyone use them for anything. Threaten them with all kinds of evil stuff. Okay, so here's my little template that I cut out. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take a pencil. This is an ordinary mechanical pencil, and I'm going to hold that like that, and I'm just going to draw around it like that onto the template plastic. You can try to do this with pen, but I have discovered that pen runs on template plastic. And so it doesn't really run. It's like if you're using pen and you wipe your finger across there, you have this big mess. So I find that pencil works really well. And it doesn't have to be a mechanical pencil. It could be any pencil. Okay. And I just have to hold that really well. There we go. Oops. First one's the tough one because it's the only one where you're having to do it with paper. Okay. So once I have that traced around like that, I can just kind of draw in. With this shape, it's really easy to just kind of extend it to make it there. That's pretty. That looks nice. And I'm just going to put a little C on there so I know which template it is, which shape. Okay. Again, with my non-fabric scissors, I'm going to cut this out. Okay. Here we go. Back in the day, before rotary cutters existed, you had to cut everything with scissors. Strips, squares, everything. So when I'm starting to feel sorry for myself because I don't want to, oh, this takes so long to cut by hand, well, it takes nothing compared to what they used to have to do. The other advantage to putting a letter on it like this is I know which way is up. I know which is the right way. Because believe it or not, these aren't symmetrical shapes, even if they sort of look like it. Okay, move that out of the way. And I'm going to bring on my fabric. Hi, fabric. My family thinks I'm so strange. Okay, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the fabric wrong side up. And I'm going to put my template also wrong side up. And I'm doing that so that the template front is going to be the front of the fabric. Okay, so you put your template wrong side down on your fabric like that. And I'm going to put a ruler under here so I have a hard surface. Okay, so I'm just going to trace around. It's easier than tracing around the paper because it's rigid. No great surprise there, huh? Okay. You may want to use, you can use a pen here, believe it or not, because no one's ever going to see it. As long as you don't have a pen that runs. If you use something like a marker, oh, it's so sad. It's going to run and it's going to go through. But they're also really cool to like chalk pencils and stuff. And the one I like, there's one that's like a rolling thing. You'll see, it's kind of like the old-fashioned, oh gosh, those things that we used to, tracing wheels, kind of like that, but it's got chalk in it. You can use that if you want. I find that pencil works just fine for me. And sometimes when I'm doing stuff like this, I will listen to a book on tape, because you'll be preparing a few of those. Okay, and there it is. You can see my shape. Now, if you're going to do this kind of applique, when you cut this out, you're going to add a 1/4 inch seam allowance, or an 1/8 of an inch, somewhere, right in there, an 1/8 to a 1/4. Don't cut right on the line. If you cut on the line, you won't have anything to turn under. Okay, so I'm just cutting that out. I got about, maybe an 1/8 of an inch. Oops. If I were Eleanor Burns, I could throw that just right over my shoulder and have it land on the floor. And when I start sewing, when I start playing with the FOF, you may see fabric and thread flying over my shoulder, which would have given my mom fits. But it really entertains the cat. If you ever throw something over your shoulder when you're sewing, the cat will leap out of your way to go get it. Okay, and see that long tip? I'm just going to snip that off so I don't have so much to turn over under the tip. Okay, so I've cut that out, and now I'm putting this back. I'm going to go right back here like that because I'm going to press over those edges to have these really nice edges. So what I recommend is that you get either a starch, spray starch, or this is a starch alternative. The nice thing about this stuff is that it doesn't, because it's not starch, it does not feed bugs. And this is, believe it or not, starch, it's just like a cereal. And so bugs go, ooh, ah, yay, something to eat. And you can actually get little nasty bugs in your fabric because you go in there to eat the starch. So if you do use starch, regular starch, like to press your fabrics before you start sewing, you actually should wash them again and press them again before you put them away. But that's why I like this stuff. It's the starch alternative. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of put a little bit around there. You can see that the template's wet, which matters not at all. And in some ways it's okay because then it'll even help the fabric to go over the edges. Okay, now this is a very hot little iron. And when you're doing this, your iron's also going to be hot. And you know what you don't want to have happen? You do not want your finger there. I think you've probably, if you've been a quilter for any time at all, you know what I mean. It's really not fun. As you can see, I'm just pressing this around like that, letting it just kind of work in. That's the nicest thing. You get such pretty curves when you do it this way. Your curves will be just perfect. When you come to this point, oops, I want to show you something. When you come to the point of your petal or your leaf, what you're going to want to do is this will come over like that before you press in the sides. So I'm just going to use a pencil. You can use an awl, you can use your finger, whatever you feel like. I'm just going to fold that over the point like that. There, and press that down. I'll hold it for a second. Okay, and then I'm going to put it back this way. You'll find your own comfortable ways. I find that I tend to press certain directions, keeping my left hand to the side because that's the hand holding things. Okay, and I'm going to make sure my finger moves out of the way, just like that. Okay, wait till you see this. It'll be really pretty. Okay, and yay, look what's not melting. My template plastic isn't melting. Hooray. Okay. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to come over this side and press it over like that. Now, I only have an 1/8 inch seam allowance here. You're absolutely welcome to use a 1/4 inch. The reason I use an 1/8 inch is because I just find that it's less fabric that you have to press around curves and fit in. But to each his own. And if you want a 1/4 inch seam allowance on there, which is what most people, you know, the patterns usually will call for a 1/4 inch, even on something like applique, but I think you might find that an 1/8 of an inch is plenty, and because it's not a seam allowance, really, it's just a turn under. Okay, ta-da! And then, when it's cool, we're just gonna, okay. I can pop this out, the little template comes right out, because you can use the same one over and over and over and over again. Thank goodness. Boop. There we go. And there's my little petal. Isn't that pretty? Look how perfect that is. Look at those curves. Ooh, yay, it makes it really easy to applique. Okay, so that's one way. If you want to hand applique, or there's something called invisible applique. You can turn under an edge like that, so you don't have any fusible web in your quilt, but use your machine to just stitch right along the edge. Okay, so you don't have to hand applique it, and you can still make it this way. All right, so what's the other way? Fusible web. Okay, I'm gonna move this to the side for a minute. Okie dokie, fusible web. Now you're gonna be drawing on the paper side, not the bumpy side. And the way you're gonna do that, again, I have to turn it over because I need it to be in reverse. Okay, so you can do it this way and trace it in reverse, or you can just print it out already reversed and put it like that. But I'm just going to turn it over. Okay, and I'm going to trace that little piece, just like I did on the template plastic. I'm going to trace it on the paper side of the fusible web. And don't worry if you get a tiny bit messy on this. You're never going to see this. This goes away. So if don't be freaking out if it seems messy, because this will never show. Okay, there we go. Now, fusible web is kind of interesting in that you're going to end up cutting up fabric out on there, but right now, when you're working with just the fusible web, you just want to cut. Doesn't matter, you don't have to be exact on this at all. Just kind of whack that out of the way. There, like this. There. Okay? And what I'm going to do, I am going to press this to the wrong side of my fabric again. Now this has a glue on the back, and what you want to do, you want to read the instructions for the brand you're using. you'll find sometimes it just doesn't seem to stick. It's like it's not working, and why not? And people think, oh, my iron's not hot enough. Well, believe it or not, your iron can be too hot. If your iron's too hot, that could be one reason it's not working. So read the directions. You know, every brand has its own temperature. I know that I need to come down a little bit on the iron for this one. So I'm going to put it there on the back of my fabric. There we go. And I'm just going to hold it there. And you follow directions. Now, I have discovered that fusible web gets a little transparent when it's actually bonded, which is what you want. So if it looks really white in some areas, you can see that it's not as bonded as it should be. Let me show you what that looks like. I'll just take a scrap. Okay, if you do it really fast, you know, you don't give it enough time, there. It's not as transparent. See over here, this part? See how white that looks? That means it's not really as bonded as you want it to be. Okay, you can actually peel it off. So, you know, take a look, just make sure you've got it the way you want it to be. Now I'm going to cut out right on the line, like that. Oh, these are so pretty. These fabrics, oh, they're amazing. Well, any fabric made in Japan is pretty much gorgeous stuff. But then you have French General designing this. And French Generals, all, you know, everything that comes from the French General designers is really beautiful stuff. Okay, yay Moda for having French General. Okay, there it is. Look at that, isn't that pretty? So I have this one, and I have this one, and now I'm going to show you how to make one with freezer paper. Okay, let's get my piece of freezer paper here. Freezer paper applique is, you know, it's actually a wonderful way to applique. It's got special things, certain things that are real advantage in that you can have it so that it holds your template in place where you want it when you're going to sew it, but it's not anything permanent, and it just makes it easier. So you're not, the one that has the turn under edge, I will pin in place, and it can move around a little bit, and this will keep that from happening. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to trace my little shape again on the paper side, not on the shiny side, and I'm going to trace it right side up, like this. Oops, where's my little hard thing? There we go. You know, everything we get to use as quilters is really cool. I love our rulers. I know, I'm kind of a nut. I'm sort of a quilting nut. You might be too. I would rather quilt than do just about anything. Oh my gosh. I would rather quilt than work. I would much rather quilt than clean. And it makes me really happy. And then when the football game is on downstairs and certain people in my house are yelling, I don't have to hear it because I'm happily upstairs in my sewing room because I'm lucky and have my own sewing room, and I don't have to listen to it, and I'm just having fun. Okay, so that's been traced. Now this, I'm going to cut out right on the line again, just like I did with the template plastic. Okay, just like that. Just get that out of my way. Okay. Oh, this is so pleasant. It really is. I'm in a studio, and for me, this is technically work, but it's so great. I am a lucky, lucky woman, I'll tell you that. Okay, fabric. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this on the back of my fabric like that, so the shiny side is up. And I'm just going to have it there. You can pin through it if you want. I tend not to because I don't want to have a bump where the pin is and have it pulling the fabric around. But you can certainly do that if you want to. The other thing you can do, you can take a little dab of glue stick. Believe it or not, any glue stick. Plain old ordinary glue stick. The stuff your kids take to school, the little Elmer's glue stick is fine. You don't need anything, you know, fabric glue stick. By the way, beware. Sometimes people think they're getting a glue stick when what they're really getting is a fabric glue. Fabric glue it's meant to be permanent, and it will bond with the fabric, and on the front, on the top, it can look different. So don't use fabric glue. You want just a glue stick. Okay. So now I'm going to, again, be very kind to my fingers and not iron them. At least that's the goal. Okay, because there's this wax, this shiny stuff, watch what happens. The fabric will start sticking to the freezer paper. Okay, like that. And what happens if I happen to iron right onto that wax? Nothing. It won't hurt my iron at all. It's just going to be, it really doesn't matter. Here, I'll show you. La la la. There, see? Now it's stuck, peels off, there's nothing on my iron. There. And freezer paper templates can be used over and over again. You might think that because the wax would disappear or something. It doesn't. Okay. So I'm just going to go all the way around like that. There we go. Again, you're going to find what temperature works on your iron, what works for you. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on that tip that I did before, where I'm just going to press that down first. Oops. I'm going to press that, and then I'll press in both sides. Ta-da. If you have a pet, I have a number of pets. I have a big dog who sheds like mad. And then I have 3 cats, one of which is really my grand cat that I'm cat sitting for my daughter. But they all, I don't know, what is it about animals and fabric, quilting fabric especially? If you're like me, one of the great battles in life is keeping the cat fur off the fabric. I have a tip for you. My cats love to sit on the ironing board, and then I have cat fur every time I go. So what I do, I have a great big beach towel over my ironing board, and when I take it off, I fold it kind of into itself, so all that fur is caught in the middle. And then when I leave, even if I'm just running down the hall to get something or get a cup of coffee, I absolutely cover it, because I have a cat. She will be on there in 2 seconds, and I will then have fur everywhere. So that's just a little tip. Okay, so I didn't get that side. Okay, press you down, la la la. Okay, and then I just let it cool a tiny bit. Doesn't take long at all. And watch this, it just peels off. So you're going to pull the fabric off like that, and you can have it, just take that template out. But, ha ha ha, what's really cool, and I'm going to show you later, because I don't really want to give it away, but what's going to happen? When you press that onto your fabric when you're ready to applique, it's going to hold it in place, and then when you're almost done, you can take that out, or you can even open it on the back and take it out. So I'm going to show you how that works. All right, so when you are preparing your templates, I suggest if you don't have a favorite kind of applique yet, go ahead and prepare your templates. I would prepare maybe 3 in each way. And that way, when I get to teaching you how to applique, you can try. You can't really tell on one. If you just do one of anything, it could be you just hate that the first time, but you might find the second time it's easier. The third time you go, oh yeah, I really like this one best. So go ahead and prepare your templates. And again, if you don't already have a favorite method, go ahead and prepare 3 in each way. So 3 with the template plastic, 3 with the freezer paper, and 3 with the fusible web. Alrighty? So next time when we get together, we're going to be playing for real. We're going to start making blocks. And I get to show you what I love about the FOF. I get to pet the Moda fabric. Life is wonderful. And again, if you have any questions or you want to order the kit, go to McCallsQuilting.com/quiltalong. And I will see you back here next time.
This episode of McCalls Quilting Quilt-Along is brought to you by FOF, the sewing machine for quilters, and by Moda, producer of quilting fabric and home of the fabric pre-cuts.